Which male R&B group ruled the 1990s? Welcome to Soulful Charts. In today's episode, we're going to rank the top 10 male groups in the history of 1990s R&B. The rankings are based on each group's peak performance as lead artists on Billboard's R&B and pop charts. Only, and that's important to note, only during the 1990s. So, let's dive right into it. Number 10, Belle Biv DeVoe. Belle Biv DeVoe had 6 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the early 90s. Poison, Do Me, BBD, I Thought It Was Me, When Would I See You Smile Again, She's Dope, and Something in Your Eyes. 2 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts, Poison and Do Me. Belle Biv DeVoe had 2 number 1s on the R&B charts. Poison, the biggest song of BBD's career, was number 1 for 2 weeks in 1990, and BBD, I Thought It Was Me, was number 1 for 1 week in 1990. Poison was also a big pop hit. It spent 4 weeks at the number 3 spot, while Do Me spent 3 weeks at number 3 on the pop charts, both in 1990. I should note, Belle Biv DeVoe is credited with another hit that reached number 1 on the R&B charts, The Best Things in Life Are Free. That song's lead vocalists were Luther Vandross and Janet Jackson. Belle Biv DeVoe and Ralph Tresvant were featured on that hit record. And here's an interesting tidbit. One of BBD's top 10 hits, Something in Your Eyes, was written by Babyface. The song peaked at number 6 on the R&B charts in 1993. Next up, number 9 is High Five. High Five had 6 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the early 90s. I Just Can't Handle It, I Like the Way, I Can't Wait Another Minute, She's Playing Hard to Get, Quality Time, and Never Should Have Let You Go. 3 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts. I Like the Way, I Can't Wait Another Minute, and She's Playing Hard to Get. High Five had 2 number 1s on the R&B charts. I Like the Way, the biggest song of High Five's career, went number 1 for 2 weeks in the March of 1991. And I Can't Wait Another Minute was number 1 for 1 week, also in 1991. I Like the Way also went number 1 on the pop charts for 1 week in May of 1991. So here's an interesting tidbit. High Five's record Quality Time was written by the very troubled yet equally talented singer-songwriter R. Kelly. The song peaked at number 3 on the R&B charts in February of 1993. Next up we have number 8, Silk. Silk had 4 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the early 90s. Freak Me, Lose Control, Girl You For Me, and If You. Freak Me is the biggest song of Silk's career. The song spent an amazing 8 weeks at number 1 on the R&B charts in 1993. The song was also a number 1 hit for 2 weeks on the pop charts in 93. So here's 2 interesting tidbits about Freak Me. R&B crooner Keith Sweat co-wrote Freak Me. And also Freak Me was the number 1 song on Billboard's R&B and pop charts at the same time on May the 1st, 1993. Number 7, Mint Condition. Mint Condition had 6 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Breaking My Heart, also known as Pretty Brown Eyes. Forever in Your Eyes. You Send Me Swinging. What Kind of Man Would I Be? You Don't Have to Hurt No More, and If You Love Me. Breaking My Heart, the group's debut single, peaked at number 3 for 3 weeks on the R&B charts and was the only record by the group to reach the top 10 of the pop charts, peaking at number 6 on Billboard Hot 100. You Send Me Swingin' is Mint Condition's biggest record. It peaked at number 2 for 4 weeks on the R&B charts. Next up, in the number 6 spot, After 7. After 7 had 6 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Ready or Not, Can't Stop, Nights Like This, Kicking It, Baby I'm For Real, Until You Do Me Right. 2 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts, Ready or Not and Can't Stop. After 7 scored both of their number 1 hits on the R&B charts in 1990. Ready or Not, the trio's biggest hit, peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks, and Can't Stop peaked at number 1 for 1 week of that year. Both of these songs were co-written by the soulful dynamic duo Babyface and L.A. Reid. Next up, number 5, Dru Hill. Dru Hill had 7 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Tell Me, In My Bed, Never Make a Promise, We're Not Making Love No More, 5 Steps, How Deep Is Your Love, and These Are the Times. 3 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts in the 1990s. In My Bed, Never Make a Promise, and How Deep Is Your Love. Dru Hill had 3 number 1s on the R&B charts in the 90s. In My Bed peaked at number 1 for 3 weeks. Never Make a Promise, the group's biggest hit, peaked at number 1 for 4 weeks. And How Deep Is Your Love peaked at number 1 for 3 weeks. Now, Dru Hill is credited as a featured artist on 2 other songs that were top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Big Bad Mama by Foxy Brown and Wild Wild West by Will Smith. And here's an interesting tidbit. Babyface is credited as a songwriter on 2 of Dru Hill's top 10 R&B hits from the 90s. We're Not Making Love No More and These Are the Times. Next up, in the number 4 spot, we have Blackstreet. Blackstreet had 4 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Before I Let You Go, No Diggity, Don't Leave Me, and Take Me There with Maya featuring Mace and Blinky Blink. Now, 2 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts in the 1990s. Before I Let You Go and No Diggity. Blackstreet had 2 number 1s on the R&B charts. No Diggity, featuring Dr. Dre, is the group's biggest hit. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the R&B charts, and it also spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the pop charts. It was a massive hit record for the group. No Diggity was the biggest hit on Billboard's R&B and pop charts at the same time, on November the 9th, 1996. And I should note that Blackstreet is credited as a featured artist on 2 top 10 hits in the 1990s. Get Me Home by Foxy Brown, it peaked at number 10 on the R&B charts in December of 96. And I Get Lonely by Janet Jackson peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks on the R&B charts, and it peaked at number 3 on the pop charts, both in May of 1998, respectively. Now we're moving into the top 3. And at number 3 is Tony, Tony, Tony. Tony, Tony, Tony had 8 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. The Blues, Feels Good, It Never Rains in Southern California, Whatever You Want, If I Had No Loop, Anniversary, Lay Your Head on My Pillow, and Thinking of You. 3 of these records reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts in the 1990s. Feels Good, If I Had No Loop, and Anniversary. Tony had 4 number 1 hits on the R&B charts in the 90s, all reaching the top spot in less than 1 year of each other, between June of 1990 and April of 1991. First off, The Blues. It peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in June of 1990. Feels Good peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in September of 1990. And It Never Rains in Southern California peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in December of 1990. And finally, Whatever You Want peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in April of 1991. In the second spot is Jodeci. Jodeci had 10 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. Forever My Lady, Stay, Come and Talk to Me, I'm Still Waiting, Lately, Cry for You, Fiending, Freaking You, Love You for Life, and Get On Up. Surprisingly, only one of these songs reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts in the 1990s, and that song was Lately. Jodeci had 5 number 1 hits on the R&B charts in the 1990s. That's right, half of their top 10s went to the very top of the R&B charts, all in just a little over 10 years. I'm sorry, all in just a little over 2 years. Forever My Lady peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in November of 91. Stay peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in February of 92. Come and Talk to Me peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks in May into June of 92. Lately, it peaked at number 1 for 4 weeks in July into August of 93. And Cry for You peaked at number 1 for 4 weeks in January into February of 94. Interesting tidbit, Devontae Swing, songwriter, producer, and member of Jodeci, is credited as a songwriter on every one of the group's top 10 R&B hits, except for Lately, which was a Stevie Wonder remake. Okay, so now we've reached the number 1 male R&B group of the 1990s. And that group is Boyz II Men. Boyz II Men had 12 top 10 hits on the R&B charts in the 90s. Motown Philly, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, Please Don't Go, End of the Road, In the Still of the Night, I'll Make Love to You, On Bended Knee, Water Runs Dry, One Sweet Day with Mariah Carey, 4 Seasons of Loneliness, and finally, A Song for Mama. Out of those 12 R&B hits, all but 2 reached the top 10 on Billboard's pop charts. Boyz II Men had 5 number 1s on the R&B charts, and 5 number 1s on the pop charts respectively. So these were the songs that went number 1 on the R&B charts. It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday. It peaked at number 1 for 1 week in October of 1991. The song spent 4 weeks in the number 2 spot on the pop charts. Peaked at number 1 for 1 week in February of 92. The song didn't reach the top 10 on the pop charts. A Song for Mama peaked at number 1 for 2 weeks at the end of 1997 into the start of 98. The song peaked at number 7 on the pop charts. Okay, so these are the songs that went number 1 on the pop charts. On Bended Knee, it spent 6 weeks at number 1 on the pop charts, compared to peaking at the number 2 spot for 2 weeks on the R&B charts. One Sweet Day with Mariah Carey, The song spent a stunning 16 weeks as the #1 song on the pop charts in December of 1995, well into the first quarter of 1996. It was in the #2 spot on the R&B charts for 9 weeks during the same time period. And then finally, 4 Seasons of Loneliness. It peaked at #1 for 1 week in October of 97. The record spent 4 weeks in the #2 spot on the R&B charts. So here are the songs that reached #1 on both the R&B and pop charts. End of the Road. It was #1 for 4 weeks on the R&B charts and #1 for an incredible 13 weeks on the pop charts. I'll Make Love to You, arguably Boyz II Men's biggest record. It spent 9 weeks at #1 on the R&B charts and an astonishing 14 weeks at #1 on the pop charts. Michael Bivins, a member of New Edition, and then Belle Biv DeVoe, which happens to be ranked #10 on this list, discovered Boyz II Men. And here's another tidbit involving Babyface yet again. Babyface is credited as a songwriter on 4 of Boyz II Men's top 10 hits. 3 of those 4 were #1 R&B hits. End of the Road, #1 R&B and #1 pop hit. I'll Make Love to You, #1 R&B and #1 pop hit. A Song for Mama, a #1 R&B hit which peaked at #7 on the pop charts. And Water Runs Dry, a #4 song on the R&B charts, and it peaked at #2 on the pop charts respectively. So what separated Boyz II Men from Jodeci, Tony, and the rest of the 90s male R&B groups was the tremendous crossover success that the Philly Quartet had on the pop charts. In fact, Boyz II Men's performance on the pop charts is quite comparable to the group's showing on the R&B charts. The group was very popular with the R&B audience, without a doubt. But unlike their contemporaries in the soulful space, Boyz II Men had strong and consistent appeal with the pop crowd throughout, essentially all of the 1990s. With that said, who is your favorite male R&B group of the 1990s? Which group do you think is ranked too high? Which group do you think is ranked too low? Is there a 90s group not featured in this video that you think should be in the top 10? Remember, we only looked at groups whose catalogs peaked in the 1990s. There have been so many male R&B and funk groups. Therefore, we'll be ranking 60s, 70s, and 80s male R&B groups in upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button and leave your thoughts in the comments. Have a soulful music topic that you would like to see featured in an upcoming video on Soulful Charts? Let me know what that topic is and maybe I'll tackle it in an upcoming video. I encourage you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in order to be notified when new videos get released. And one more thing, share this channel with other connoisseurs of soul music. Peace.